It is indeed a great pleasure to be here this evening with all of you on this happy moment. Our speaker tonight is Michelle Bachelet. Michelle Bachelet is the first Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UN Women. She is more than a pioneer. She is one of the most storied and gifted people of our time. Her life thus far would fill volumes and is the stuff of legend. Her family suffered greatly under the oppression of Pinochet's government in Chile. Her father perished, and she and her mother suffered under the appalling conditions of incarceration of that time and place. Yet after exile in Australia and East Germany, she returned to Chile and completed her medical studies, took up where she left off, with specializations in pediatrics and public health. She has always been politically active, and she rose to become Chile's Minister of Health. Later, she became the first woman named Minister of Defense, yet another of the many firsts that she has achieved. In 2006, she was elected President of Chile, the first woman to attain that office. She garnered the highest approval ratings in the country's history. Among her priorities was a new focus on social protection programs for women and children. This strikes the theme for this evening. In July 2010, the UN General Assembly established UN Women, the United Nations entity for gender equality and the empowerment of women. Dr. Bachelet became the first head of the entity, entering service in September of 2010. And we met with her at about that time to invite her here. One of the principal objectives of UN Women is ending violence against women. Undersecretary General Bachelet is a leading global force speaking out against trafficking of women and of children. She is perfectly suited to this moment, to this event, to the themes, and she is the ideal person to give our keynote address this evening. I would like to cast it in terms that are attributed to King Solomon. Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering toward slaughter. But if you say, we knew nothing of this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not reward each one according to what he has done? Undersecretary General Dr. Bachelet has herself been a source of rescue to many individuals. Our honorees have, like Dr. Bachelet, rescued countless individuals and held back those staggering toward slaughter. They have pulled them back from the brink and from beyond of disaster. They have resisted evil at great personal risk and cost, and with unswerving dedication. Dr. Bachelet, we are honored by your presence. We look forward to the next volumes of your life, and we welcome you this evening.
Good evening, Honorable John Train. Thank you, Ambassador Menzies, for your words. Dear awardees, ladies and gentlemen, friends. Let me say from the start that I'm very pleased to share this special evening with you. And I want to thank Chairman John Train for his leadership and the Train Foundation for all you do and for holding the Civil Courage Award ceremony. This evening gives all of us an invaluable opportunity to reflect on civil courage and what it means to put up steadfast resistance to great protection and the well-being of others. All over the world, individuals are standing up for human rights and justice. I just returned from Egypt, where I met with young women and men leaders from Arab states across the region. In all countries where protests occurred, from Tahrir Square in Egypt to Sana'a in Yemen, women are standing equally alongside men for the future and the future of their countries, and they are putting their lives on the line. All over the world, women are demanding peace and justice. So we are so fortunate to be able here to honor two women tonight for their tremendous civil courage. In our pleasure, journalists and children in Cancun, Mexico. But that's only the start. She has done. And we, the president of the Rescue Foundation, an organization that fighting and prostitution of children in Mumbai, India. My friends, we are in the presence of two very strong and powerful women. Their courage and moral power are not vested within the courage to take direction and created organizations to gaps in justice. They stand out because they break the silence on gender-based violence, a human rights violation that has been for so long neglected and been inevitable and even acceptable in some parts of the world. They stand out because they acted on their profound belief in human rights and equal rights for all. Their power lies in defending the rights of women and children to live free of abuse, exploitation, and violence, and they do so at their own peril. Because they speak the truth and stand up for the rights of others, their own lives have been in constant danger. Because they identify organized criminal networks and corrupt officials and stand up to husbands who abuse their wives, they have been imprisoned and tortured and still face death threats. The award winners stand up against one of the most pervasive yet least punished crimes in the world, violence against women and children. They stand up against one of the fastest growing segments of organized crime and one of the most profitable, human trafficking and sexual slavery. For their courageous work, we owe them deep respect and gratitude. In standing against human trafficking and sexual slavery, they champion human dignity. The sale of women and children in the global economy as commodities such as shoes or handbags poses a direct threat to our humanity and to the notions of decency and human rights to which nations have subscribed. These two fantastic women, being honored tonight, fight this impunity and the dark and hidden nature of sexual slavery that allows this criminal activity to thrive. Through their courageous work, they act as undercover agents, conducting their own investigations, freeing victims of trafficking from horrendous conditions of captivity, humiliation, and degradation. They publish their findings. They bring to light what is kept in the dark and shine a light of justice. The challenge in the fight against this form of 21st century slavery is ignorance, the lack of information, or simply saying it does not concern. We know it's one of the most lucrative illicit businesses, and it is almost impossible to calculate how many women and children are bought and sold and humiliated and degraded every day. According to UN estimates, there are about 2 million women and girls who are sexually exploited and trafficked every year. About 80% of victims are trafficked for purposes for sexual exploitation, and of this, 80% are girls and women. This reality highlights the urgent need for public intervention. This is about the violation of fundamental human rights. Trafficking involves the negation of the human condition. It is making millions of women and children into objects of abuse and consumption. Just as no woman or child should be bought and sold like merchandise in a market, no trafficker should be allowed to get away with this heinous crime. The two women being honored tonight take courageous actions every day to deliver much-needed justice. This call for justice is echoing around the world. People are coming together calling for an end to greed and corruption by a few. They are disillusioned with established order and frustrated with inequality. They are distrustful of institutions and strange interests, and they ask to be heard. This is direct democracy. And there can be no democracy without the participation of women and men. As you heard from the ambassador, I have served as Minister of Defense and as a president, and I have worked to build strong institutions functioning as agents of democracy, social protection, and the rule of law. I know firsthand what a dictatorship is like. And now I'm Executive Director of UN Women, this new United Nations entity that was created by demand and became operational at the beginning of this year in January. And I believe we are in a critical juncture. We have entered a new period of history. We're still trying to figure out what we're shaping in precise terms because developments are coming very quickly, and it's hard to process all that is going on. At the very least, this is a period of history that will be characterized by increased participation in which people are connected as never before through new technology and instant communication. And it will be marked by a shift in the balance of power both between and within countries. All over the world, and let there be no doubt about this, women are demanding their rights, and in doing so, they are demanding the rights of others. There is growing solidarity. Gender equality is gaining ground, and women such as those who tonight we honored are leading the way forward, joined by many others. Just recently, the Nobel Committee in Oslo awarded the Nobel Prize to 3 women, to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Limai Gobowi of Liberia, and Tawakkul Karman of Yemen. And I will quote, "They did it for the non-violent struggle for the safety of women and for women's rights to full participation in peace-building work." In awarding the Nobel Prize, they sent a powerful message around the world. Women play a vital role in building peace, justice, and democracy. Today, the discrimination and violence faced by women and girls violates their human rights and their self-determination, and it threatens the peace, security, and development of nations. We know that violence against women takes many forms, from domestic abuse to sex trafficking to rape, I would add, to female genital mutilation, to forced early marriage and pregnancies, to honor killings. It is an epidemic that costs lives, violates human rights, damages psyches, physical health, and the human spirit. Gender-based violence harms families and communities, reduces women's productivity, damages development and well-being of children, and also, even if we think on the most hard issues, it costs nations billions in losses each year. According to a study in India, a woman loses an average of at least 5 paid work days for each incident of intimate partner violence. Here in the US, the annual cost, this is an old study I have to say, the annual cost of intimate partner violence are calculated at US $5.8 billion. I think the last cost estimation that I've seen is Australia. It's a very comprehensive one, and they calculated it cost them $13.8 billion a year. And the cost and consequence of violence against women lasts for generations. Children who witness domestic violence are at increased risk of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and poor school performance, among other problems that harm their well-being and personal development. In Nicaragua, for example, 33% of children of abused women had to repeat the school year, and they left school on average 4 years earlier than other children. And children, both girls and boys, who have witnessed or suffered themselves from gender-based violence are more likely to become victims but also abusers later in life. Gender-based violence is one of the most pervasive violations of human rights in our world today, and yet it remains characterized by impunity, which allows it to continue. Through the brave work of tonight's Civil Courage Prize recipients and the work of other women and men around the world, there is a growing movement to end violence against women and children. There is solid progress to build on. If we think that just a few decades ago, rape and sexual violence in conflict were considered in something like normal in a warfare. Today, rape in war is seen for what it is, violation of human rights, a crime to be prosecuted. During the past 4 decades, we have witnessed dramatic advances in legal reform to protect women's rights. Today, 125 countries outlaw domestic violence, and 117 countries outlaw sexual harassment, and 100 ratify the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, signaling their commitment to fulfilling the human rights of women and girls and breaking down the barriers to achieving gender equality and justice. Dozens of countries have ratified a new international agreement to protect human beings from being bought and sold as commodities for exploitation and profit. The United Nations Protocol Against Trafficking in Persons, the foremost international agreement in this area, is being implemented by countries and traffickers are being arrested. Yet, we all know, and none more so than the 2 women being honored tonight, that despite the gains, in many countries of the world, the rule of law still rules women out. Too often, justice institutions, including the police and the courts, deny women justice. So we have a lot of law, but very little implementation of the law, if I may say. We also see that women parliamentarians, lawyers, judges, and activists are driving change and making a real difference. The women being honored tonight are making a real difference in thousands of women's and children's lives. Ending violence against women and girls and the impunity that allows it to continue are top priority for us, for UN Women. So that's why I feel so honored to be here in this ceremony. Our other priorities which reinforce progress in this area are increasing women's participation and leadership, engaging women fully in peacemaking, peacebuilding, and reconstruction, prioritizing gender equality in national plans and budget, and advancing women's economic empowerment. By working on those fronts simultaneously, we think we will make greater progress because we believe we need to empower women so they can be in a better position to stand on all of these problems. Today, progress is being made by women such as Lydia and Trevino, who risk their own lives in the defense of human rights and the lives of others. So, in honoring Lydia Cacho Riviere and Triveni Acharya tonight, what we are honoring is them, of course, but what they do represent. We honor the spirit of solidarity and the universal values that unite us as humanity. We honor the inherent dignity and worth of equal courage to defend human rights, dignity, and freedom. Thank you very much.
I hope, Madam Undersecretary General, that you sense the warmth of the reception and the degree of support that you enjoy in this audience for the work that you are doing. And we wish you every success and look forward to the reports of the victories that are before you. Thank you. Now,